my guest is Jennifer Heil, Olympic champion, Guinness World Record holder, and the first athlete in freestyle skiing to win every major title in the sport. Known for her precision, resilience, and ability to perform under pressure, Jennifer has studied what allows humans to perform at their best, not just in sport, but in life. After her athletic career, she co-founded B210, helping raising over 25 million to support Canadian high-performance athletes and reshape how elite sports systems support talent. Today, she's the CEO and co-founder of Revvel, a performance technology company helping women in midlife access the tools and expertise they need to navigate this important stage in life. Her work sits at the intersection of performance science and human potential, helping people navigate pivotal stages in their life with more strength, clarity, and confidence. In this episode, you'll hear what it really takes to perform under pressure, how elite athlete thinks about resilience, and why the tools once reserved for Olympic champions are now becoming accessible to women navigating one of the most powerful transitions of their life. In this conversation, we explore what it truly means to perform at your best, and not only on the world stage, but through the different seasons of life. Jennifer, my friend, I'm truly honored to have you here today. And before we dive in, I would like to acknowledge something significant and congratulating you on your recent appointment as chef de mission for Team Canada for the Olympic Winter that will be happening in February 2026. This is an extraordinary responsibility, and it's a powerful vote of trust in who you are, and not just as an athlete, but also as a leader and as a human being.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah. Look, it's such an honor. I've looked up to, the chef de missions previously when I was at the Olympic Games, actually had a really big impact on me as an athlete. And so when I got the call to put my name in to be considered, it was just like yeah, a real gift to be asked to serve.
It's incredible. And I think you're very humble about it because that's a big deal. Like as the same way it's a big deal to go to the Olympics, it's a big deal to be called to be chef de mission to the Olympic. How does it feel to step into this role, and what does being chef de mission truly means for you at this stage of your life and your career?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, as an athlete, I have such a wide-ranging experience. So I finished fourth in the Olympics by 1/100th of a point, which is the smallest margin to miss winning an Olympics. I went on to win gold, and then I had some of the biggest pressure in 2010. The media said that it was me and the men's hockey that had that pressure, but I had to face it alone on day one as reigning champion, and that pressure almost crushed me. So to have that extent of experience and that wide ranging experience, that allows me to share those insights, share with the athletes how I made it through and how I put my best foot forward, and also give them permission to know that it's hard and you can be suffering and it can be challenging and you can still come out on top, and getting into those details. So as a mentor to the athletes on the performance side, it's my passion, it's my joy. Everything I seek to do is strive towards being my best, strive towards excellence. And so yeah, it's a gift to be able to offer that to others and to, in the world that I love so much, which is sport. And then on the leadership side, there's over 100 mission staff on the ground who are working very long hours, who aren't sleeping, who are there because of passion and dedication to sport and to the athletes. It's a really tough job. So supporting them through that, and also, they want to contribute to those medals in a really positive way. And the environment for an athlete at the Olympics can make or break a performance. And so they understand the magnitude of their role, but it's also a background role. It's kind of this same mix of performance where you want to be committed to driving towards an outcome, but you also have to let that outcome go a little bit and settle into yourself. And it's actually the same for the mission staff in a different way, but same perspective. It's not an easy role. So supporting them through that, that's really been my focus. I've seen a lot since retiring from sport. I've been in a lot of different leadership roles, and I've learned it's not about having all the answers. It's about, creating the environment for others to lead as well and empowering them. And so that's been a big part of my focus on the mission staff side.
Would you say that your kids understand a little bit what is mommy is going to do? Are they excited or like is there's any conversation around this? Because it's a big deal.
Well, the thing with my kids is that the Olympics have kind of been normalized in their world. So a lot of our friends are Olympians or Olympic champions or top professional athletes. They kind of just think this is normal. And to be honest, my nephew, Cedric Brunet, just qualified for the Olympics 2 days ago. So now their cousin's an Olympian. I think they understand how special the Olympics are, but they don't understand the magnitude of it. But my oldest son was actually asking me if he could come to Italy with me, and he was saying, you have a hotel room anyways. It's not like you have to get a second room for me. So he's a good negotiator.
Hmm. But what I hear now is that no matter where you are in life and how high you climb the different ladders of sports or entrepreneurship, you're just never going to impress your kids,
Yeah, that's
right?
clear. That's really clear. They also told me after watching one of my videos, like, oh, you only did a backflip iron cross at the Olympics? Lame.
Oh, we love them so much. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Um, Seb, my husband, has climbed some of the highest summit on each continent, and when Logan was 11 years old, tried to ask like, what does it mean in terms of height? Oh, and he looked at and he's like, oh. But this one is not that high. He was saying that, oh, this is nothing. This is, it takes 2 weeks, but you just walk. Like it's not hard.
Yeah, and I mean, ultimately, that's what you want for your kids, right? You want to inspire them and show them that these things are achievable. On the other hand, you also don't want to set the expectation that they have to be an Olympian to achieve in this world. So, it's an interesting line, and it's a lot of fun to bring them along on this journey.
Yeah, you're right. It's to elevate the standard without creating an unbearable line to attain.
Exactly. That's a great way to put
Yeah.
it.
And and it's true because at the height of your career, excellence was measured in medals, ranking, seconds, as you say, a tenth of a second, right? And today your world looks very different. You have business, your leadership, the entrepreneurship, the philanthropy. So how is your definition of power and strength as a woman has evolved?
That's an interesting question. To be honest, I don't think my definition of power and strength has changed. I feel like the world has caught up. And I mean that by I was an athlete who came through and was competing in an era where women's sport, in my sport, for the first time had equality, but a lot of women's spaces did not have equality. They had the secondary training fields, they had less resources, they weren't taken seriously. And so I feel like I was a part of the generation that shifted that, but we didn't have the same stage that exists today. I just get goosebumps when and actually I break down in tears a lot too, because it's like when I see the women having their own professional hockey league and their own professional soccer league here in Canada, I get goosebumps every time because it actually feels like relief, to be honest. Like we are seen, we are heard, we are understood as these powerful and strong beings and celebrated for it. And I do feel like I was very well supported and celebrated throughout Canada during my own career, but women's sport has attained this new level of notoriety. And finally, people are understanding that it is also a business. And I think that was kind of the last piece, is that investment. Answer your question more explicitly, to me, and I think this is a lot of women feel this way, we just weren't seen this way, is like leadership is complex. We are complex as human beings. And so being able to be celebrated for all things, for strength, for softness, being loud, for helping others in their own leadership by being more quiet, it's everything. And so yeah, my definition and my sense of self hasn't shifted through this. I've just learned new skills from being a solo athlete to leading through others, and then going on and leading a startup and empowering a team to bring this vision of our company, Revvel, to life.
I want to piggyback on this evolution of women in sport. And that could be a tricky question. So you navigate it the way you want, okay? But if you could redesign elite sport for women today, what needs to change to truly support female performance and not just female participation?
Yeah, so I wanna start by saying a lot has happened and so many people have contributed to this. The defiance of people like Serena Williams who had to defend her strength and her power. All of those things contribute to it. It takes time. It takes so many strong voices. So I think we've come a long ways, but when you look at it, women have and girls have been treated as little men and little boys. And our physiologies are very different. We have huge complexity in terms of our hormones, in terms of our development, and 96% of all sports science is based off of the male body. Until you fill that gap, until you treat women as their and girls as their own category that need a different approach. We know that girls in their young teens can't handle huge volume of plyometrics and those sorts of things because they're more likely to have an ACL injury. Well, then training has to be redesigned and coaches have to be supported and informed and all of these pieces. So there's still a long ways to go. There was this recognition that because girls needed different things, there was something wrong with them. I think we've moved past that, but now we need to fill that knowledge gap and start to build those systems around them. And we also know that girls need support from participation. Most want it to be social. They want to have peers around them. That can be hard to achieve on that on ramp into elite sport. And so, again, the programs need to be designed differently. Yeah, still a lot of work to do.
I will find the exact statistic, but the age is at 14 years old. This is where most girls stop practicing any kind of sport or activity. And it's because of that. It's because of the support, because of the social, or because if they feel that it's not designed for them, they're not interested in contact, they're not interested or necessarily in pushing for performance. They want to play. Yeah, they want to compete, but they don't want to compete. Have a good time. And it feels that sometimes we're not encouraging girls to keep pushing in sports past a certain age. It's a philosophy, it's a mentality that really needs to change because it goes beyond the casual weekend hangout. There's mental health, there's community, but there's also body health, right? Being active. It's you build so much of your strength in your teen, in your early age of adulthood that will be the structure that you will have your foundation when you're 30, 40, 50, 60. So
Mhm.
I think you're bringing a good point about bringing the gap, and as we need to support and open the horizon that it's not just to compete, but also for everybody's health. Like it's okay and normal for a 12, 13, 14-year-old boy to go play soccer, but a girl would be like, oh, you're part of a team? That's nice. Like, no, it should be the norm. It should be, we shouldn't be surprised to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've touched on a few issues. One is that we have over professionalized kids sport for
Oh,
both
yes.
girls and boys. And so we're seeing kids at 10 and 11 years old traveling around the world for tournaments and going from my sport, go and train on the glaciers where I trained as a national team athlete. This is not necessary. This is what leads to, and so we're making these athletes focus too soon and making them take it too seriously. It doesn't mean don't strive to be your best, and that's where this is different. I don't know anyone who participates in sport that doesn't want to be their best. Do they necessarily want to be the greatest athlete of all time? No, maybe not. But there needs to be a way to create environments for every boy and every girl to be challenged to be their best. And I think that's where it comes, that's what I was saying earlier. This is where it comes down to programming.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a national team athlete, I wanted to work to get more girls into our sport and to keep them in our sport because it has been a very male dominated sport for many good reasons too why that's happened. But one of the things we did was we knew that the girls were needed a supportive environment. We knew that they, in order to go off the jumps and to do their biggest tricks, they had to be supported, not judged. And so it was a girls only environment. We were broke down the skills. We supported them through that. It was at the end of the season, and I was told that the girls did their biggest tricks that they wouldn't do all year because we had this environment Furthermore, we created a fun competition where it was team based rather than individual based. And we inspired these girls. So these are the things that we can do. They're actually not complex. They don't take more resources. They just take a certain level of knowledge and understanding from the coaches. We don't need to remake sport. We need to stop professionalizing kids' sport. We need to let kids go out there and play the game and challenge themselves. And we need to do it in a supportive environment. So I think a lot of it comes down to education of the coaches and design and pushing against this cultural narrative of over specializing, of overtraining. You can go and strive and have a great time without trying to be the next Olympic champion. That will happen on its own if it's meant to happen. That's what we have to understand.
Yeah, and I can feel the tiredness in your voice, right? Like you talk about the Olympic and there's an excitement, but when we talk about what needs to be done, it's like, ah, like there's so much energy that needs to be put there, and there's so much pushback. And but we need to keep pushing.
The problem is market forces too, right? So sport is not well funded. Coaches are not well supported in our current system. And so what we've seen is the breaking off into the privatization of kids' sport. That alone isn't bad. If you can have better trained coaches, that's great. But the problem is that then they're competing with other sports. So they're doing everything to keep your dollars in their sport. So the season gets longer. So everything becomes more comprehensive and kids get locked into these sports. So the problem is like the heaviness in my voice is that I don't think we're solving this anytime soon because where the incentives are and the lack of funding in the public sector. When you look at the commitment of this country to sport, the Canadian government hasn't increased funding for national teams since 20 years. Like these sports are on the verge of bankruptcy. Should they diversify some of their financial resources? Absolutely. But like if you want to have a robust system where kids can have the best of sport, you have to be serious about it as a country, and you have to be willing to fund from the top to the bottom. And I don't see that coordination, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. That's why my voice is tired.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you for being tired for all of us. That's very appreciated. And to come back to one point you put into perspective, do you think, and again, not being excessive or unhealthy, but more in a positive way, do you think women or girls in general are encouraged to pursue excellence, or are we still subtly taught to earn permission before we go all in?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's cultural narratives that I think limit girls and women in terms of their leadership. I'm currently building a startup in the tech sector where we are operating in both the US and Canada. When you look at that sector, there's billions and billions of dollars invested into early stage startups. Less than 4% of all that funding goes to female founders. This is one of the last horizons or last sectors where women aren't supported. And then the narrative becomes, well, women don't take the same risks. Well, of course you don't take the same risks. You can't get the capital. Of course, you have to be capital conservative, capital conscious. Of course you're not going to spend and grow in the same way. So they become self-fulfilling narratives, which is what we saw in sport for a long time. This is why I get goosebumps, because that narrative has finally changed for women in professional sports. That narrative, unfortunately, has not changed everywhere for women's leadership and these types of opportunities. And so it becomes exhausting. It takes so much more energy. It takes so much more resiliency to be dismissed and to get back up there and to try again. And I was told from male investors, because I'm a female, because I'm focused on serving women's health, which is female focused, I am dismissed at hello when I describe that is my business. This is one of the most underserved markets in health is women age 40 to 55. Women are screaming for support and solutions. And by the way, they control 80% of the healthcare spend. So this is a market that is ripe for new solutions and innovations, but I'm being dismissed as too value-based because I want to serve this very large market who has not been previously served. So, yeah, of course, there are roadblocks everywhere. My personal mentality is I'm not going to defend this. I'm going to lay out the facts and I'm just going to get on with serving women. I'm going to get on with my own business. Yeah, it's harder. Yeah, there's more things that are in my way, but what is the choice we have, right? All of the women before us have helped change this reality. And I think that it's our responsibility in these rules now to clear the path for the next generation. And hopefully they can spend more energy on taking risks because we've cleared the pathway in getting capital into the hands of women for this example of being a startup founder.
That goes towards my next question, which is it's all the perception, right? There's roadblocks, the narrative, the guilt, and the responsibility, trying to be the CEO and the mom, and missing days because your kids are sick, but the role is de facto on your shoulders. You know, all of this sometimes feel that we're not having a fair start point for a race, and we don't have a fair end point either. So it feels that we can never win. And this is a very clear example. Many high achieving women struggle with the limiting belief if I'm not achieving big things, if I'm not doing grandiose things, am I valuable? You kind of had this reach for a long while. You were on top of the world. And how did you navigate that transition, reaching so many important and impressive milestones and so early to where you are now? Still reaching, but it's all different. So how do you navigate that roller coasters of perception, identity?
Yeah. Look, I look to what Michelle Obama said quite a long time ago, and God bless Michelle Obama. I mean, she is doing so much work to shift that narrative and create that space for women in all shapes and forms. But she said, I believe that something along the lines of, I believe you can do it all, just not all at the same time. And there is a lot of truth in there are different phases of being a woman, there are different phases of being a mother. There are times when I think you can run fast and hard. I think there's times where personally I've pulled back and have been more focused on when my kids were young, creating that environment for them. And so that did take sacrifices in terms of my career and the roles that I wanted to take. I think that looks different for everybody. I think everybody has different perspectives and can make and different needs, right? And different realities around income and all those pieces. So I think we've moved past this idea that there's one way to do motherhood and career. I think we are at a place where you need to make the decisions that work for you, that work for your family, that work for your family unit. In relation to the question of how did I navigate it, I had a pretty big triple whammy coming out of sport, in the sense that I don't know a single Olympic medalist that hasn't gone through severe depression coming out of sport. And there's a lot of narrative around that too, around the loss of identity and not being on a big stage. I think some of that's true, but I think the reality is that there's a lot of chemical changes that go into the body of detuning an Olympic body where you're training literally every day of the life of your life, and you're also hitting incredible highs of adrenaline, and all of that just stops. So personally, I would love to see some studies and some support from a scientific perspective and the physiological side of what's happening in an athlete's body. That's a separate project and a separate discussion. But the reality is I went through pretty intense depression. I had to finish my undergraduate degree because I had been in and out of McGill for 10 years. So I was 8 years old, having to learn to sit in a chair and get work at my degree. And then I had children quite soon after. And I don't think I was, mentally fully healthy when I had my children, which then is another piece where I did experience postpartum depression. And so it was really tough. And there were lots of great days. But fundamentally, it was a really tough journey, one that I didn't fully understand I was even dealing with in the beginning. That took some time. But Look, most of these things are messy. When my kids were born, I was on the road with them doing different engagements. And thankfully, I have a really supportive partner that, had the baby strapped to his chest while I was doing different engagements and talks and these sorts of things. So, yeah, I just kind of got on with it. But at a certain point, once I realized the magnitude of it, I did go and get help and actually build a proper foundation for myself as a young mother.
You're touching a really important point, that connection mind body and body mind. The body of a Olympian or just a high level athlete is not the same composition, doesn't experience the same sensation, doesn't live the same way as somebody who's more sedentary. And then you also have the mental game. You eat for your sport, you train for your sport, your friends are around the sport, and then that changes. So there's a lot of reassignment that needs to be done, and it goes from 100 to 0.
You think about it, you lose your community from one day to the next. I think that
Mhm.
was the most shocking thing to me. And your trainers, they were like family, and you see them 3 times a day sometimes, and your teammates. It's just so stark, the changes, I guess.
I feel that some aspect of it are similar in motherhood. Some mothers discover they're pregnant, they're the only one in their group, and they lose their friends don't stop calling them, or family dissociate or get distant. And there is all these similarity of when we say we lose who we are, we lose ourselves, we look for this identity, and the environment is so big. And often in elite sport, we celebrate the discipline, the mental toughness. But to come back to that connection with mind body, what did listening to your body teach you that the discipline alone could never?
Well, that's the problem. The discipline overrides sometimes listening to the body. So, as an elite athlete, you're suffering all the time. You're suffering physically, you're suffering mentally. I mean, I had less than 30 seconds to perform every 4 years in front of 100 million people. That's one shot, less time than a TV commercial. That is such high anxiety and pressure. There is a lot that goes into it. So you're constantly working on your mindset. You're constantly finding ways to navigate that. But you're also overriding a lot of that. And so when I became a mother, that was one of the big challenges. A lot of it was just toughen up, just get on with it. And that works for a time, but that won't work forever. That's what we call burnout. That's where we hit our wall. And that's why, like you're saying, community is so essential to support you through those moments and to be a bit of a mirror. But coming back to these transitions are also an opportunity for growth and regrowth. I would not be the leader I am today without being a mother. It fundamentally shifts how effective you have to be, how focused you have to be to get everything done, but also to be concerned about other people's well being. I genuinely want to see everybody on my team thrive. I want to see them in the careers that they want to build. It totally shifts the way I see the world. And I love that. I think it gives me so much more than I was as a highly focused, highly trained individual athlete.
Mm. Is there's a lesson that being a world champion carried into motherhood, but motherhood completely rewrite it?
Oh, yeah. I have a really hard time watching my kids go off mountain bike jumps and ski jumps. Who ever saw that coming? My son, as a little kid, he's a bit of a daredevil and he didn't really know how to ride his bike. Long story short, he had a massive crash and I called my mom. He was fine and just needed some stitches on his nose, but thankfully. But I called my mom and I was complaining, like, oh, what was I thinking? His dad is too crazy. He's such a daredevil. Why did I have children with him? And she was like, well, Jen, I think you're part of the problem. But
I like
so,
that you didn't see that. For real?
yeah. So as a mother, yes, I think it has rewritten a lot of things. I don't think that was your question. I mean, look, motherhood changes us.
I feel that it enhances a lot of things. So I had a midwife that I worked with for a while. She said, you give birth and live your motherhood the same way you live your life before. If you're somebody complaining, there's a lot of complaining going on. If you're very dramatic, it's not about guilting. It's just it enhances a lot of the part of the personality that you are. But if you're leaning into the growth, the transition, and you're open, you don't need to be perfect, just open to see, okay, this is me now. This is the state. This is what's going on. How can I move through that as this new person? You can get amazing transformation. You can get to the strongest place you've never been, the most patient place you've never been, the most surprising. That also go in the other direction, that now the risk factor is like, I don't want any, right? I'm okay. I don't need my kids to jump off a cliff. I did it, but don't do it. Do what I say, know what I did.
Yeah, exactly.
If a woman right now is listening and she feels exhausted, she feels disconnected from her body, she feels overwhelmed by the pressure of doing it all and probably doing it perfectly, what is one truth about strength you wish someone told you sooner?
Well, I mean, my job was strength, and I'm not sure I always listened to this as a mother, but one thing I learned really early from my strength and conditioning coach, who was so ahead of the curve. I mean, 20 years later, I still see all the top athletes doing the same things that we did on Instagram and this sort of thing. But the narrative is work harder, be the first one there, be the last one to leave. His take was no, rest is super important, recovery is super important. Come, show up 100%. We're going to be super targeted in what we need to do. We're going to be like creative, we're going to be innovative. I trained half the amount of technical days as the rest of the team on skis because we valued targeting things in the gym, we valued rest. And so I think what we have to understand is that rest and recovery is not about being weak. It's not about not performing. Our culture definitely reinforces that narrative. I still take my recovery very seriously. I had to learn the hard way. I've explained some of those challenges I've faced as a mother, trying to kind of carry on like I did before kids. But I've learned the hard way. But meditation is a big part of my practice. If I'm exhausted, I'm going to sleep and I'm not going to go to the gym that day. I know that it's okay. So I'm constantly making these micro adjustments so that I have the energy I need. I was just very sick for all of Christmas. I canceled my entire social calendar. I do take rest and recovery really seriously because I learned that early on. That was the transformation of my career. That's where I became consistent. That's when I became a real champion, when I understood the importance of that. And I don't think we get those messages enough. And I also don't think we have the support systems. A lot of us don't have the support systems that we need. We're meant to have aunties and uncles and communities around us raising kids. And that is a real challenge for most of us. So yeah, I think it's going easy on ourselves, just letting ourselves off the hook a little bit, and then understanding that recovery is a big part of.
Yeah, when we say it takes a village for the kids, but it also takes a village for us to
100%.
have this support, and it's part of the community. Going a little bit towards your business, which targets women to 40 to 50s, you spend a lot of time studying, looking at the needs. What are the most important things that you discovered that you wish we talked about more for us women?
Yeah, I mean, I think the conversation is starting to happen around perimenopause and menopause. It's not this big secret on the sideline of what women are facing. It's a challenging time. I think for the first time, I see a cultural shift where women want to talk about it, are publicly talking about it, and shifting that narrative. From my business perspective, what's really exciting is that there is actually more knowledge than we have access to around this phase of life, around the things we can do to support ourselves, around hormone changes, the impacts that have on our body. But it's very hard to get that information. And it's really hard in a world of influencers where we see a lot of this versus the experts themselves. And so that's actually what my company Revvel is seeking to do, is how do we take the very best experts in health and performance and make them and their knowledge that they've spent their entire lives dedicated to accessible to the general population? How do you create a team of elite experts that athletes have for the everyday person. And we can do that now because of AI. And so we're creating digital twins with these leading experts where you can ask any question to these people. You can have personalized responses because you can share information on your own health, your own background, and we can get to know what it is you're navigating. And so you can have this entire team in your pocket. So I'm so excited because I do think that AI has created this opportunity for a revolution of getting that information and knowledge. We see women at this phase of life, sleep can become an issue for many women with the hormone changes. So we have sleep experts, anxiety and depression. It's one of the populations that experiences that at the highest level. Again, we can create support for that. Metabolic health. I mean, these are all experts on the human body who have kind of been trapped in this elite sport silo. And we're really excited about taking that knowledge out. And the knowledge, I spoke earlier that there is a lack of scientific knowledge of athletes and the female human body, but there is also good information today. We need to do better, but it's about getting that good information out there. And so that's really kind of our mission and how we want to serve. And we want people to feel excited that they're worth having these experts invest in them and invest in their health and invest in feeling good. At the end of the day, whatever your goals are, whether you want to run a marathon or whether you want to wake up with more energy, like it's up to you to define what performance looks like. We're gonna support you from wherever that is for you.
Yeah, and everybody has different starting points because of their background, because of their health, because of what happened.
Yeah, and everything changes too, right? There is no such thing as a static health journey.
No, I mean, we're not even static in our month,
Yeah.
right? We are consistent, and this is what we need to see is that things can shift often between weeks, but if you look at the tangent, there is cycles and there's things that we can help and support. And in this case, what I hear a lot also is that we can help prevent by supporting the body better so we're not repairing the damages that, oh, we didn't know. We were able to support so there's no muscle mass lost or bone density lost or, you know,
Exactly.
mental health. When you get to the point that you have a deep depression, deep anxiety, I mean, there is signals before. How can we support you so we can help you navigate versus trying to get you out of a well that is so deep and far? And it sucks.
Yeah. And also how can we validate when you're in that well and help you out
Exactly.
faster, you
Oh,
know?
yeah, for sure. Since you've been on this journey, building the business, being an athlete, being a mother, like all these things together that are these beautiful branches that form who you are, what are the couple of things that you have changed in the past, let's say, couple of years, maybe 2, 3, 4 years, that with the knowledge you gain, you change for yourself and saying, like, you know what, from now on, this is what I do, or from now on, I will stop doing that. Investing now, knowing in 5 years or 10 years from now, you'll be happy that you started.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is quite a funny admission coming from an Olympic athlete. But I stopped going to the gym and lifting weights. I was just like over it. And so I would do non-weight bearing things like Pilates, which I love and are essential to building mobility and keeping mobility as we age. I got armed with the knowledge that as you hit 40, you have to maintain your muscle mass because it will only decrease, which is essential. And so I got armed with that information, and it was finally the last trigger to get me back into the gym. And now I'm regularly there. I feel stronger. Guess what? I'm better when I'm jumping down a chute on my skis or surfing a big wave. I'm not gonna. I'm now protecting myself from injury, which I had kind of let go. So that's an example of how I'm using the knowledge on the female body and how it's important to think ahead.
Yeah, that's so important. And there is a bit that mentality to have been coaching women for a couple of decades now. This mentality of harder is better. They focus only on one, right? So they either only do yoga like 5 times a week. Yoga is amazing. I think it's almost mandatory. Again, for mobility, core strength, balance, breath, all of the above. or they will just do the high intensity classes and because it sweats, like the spinning classes, or there's a lot of like jumping around, and they're drenched in sweat, and they look at their heart rate and they spend most of their classes in the really really high intensity, and they feel that they accomplish something. Or they go to the gym and they only go on the treadmill and they run, or they do only marathon. Again, each of those leads to burned out when they're not well balanced, but also increase so much the cortisol response. I see these memes on Instagram or other social media. It's like, I go to the gym, yes, I'm calorie deficit, yes. Am I losing weight? No, I gain weight. And it's infuriating. But we need to understand that lifting weights, moving properly through any vessel, yoga, Pilates, I mean, there's so many modalities, combination of them, Qigong, Tai Chi, martial arts, dancing. There's just so many things that are great and are needs to be balanced to help, and it all starts with a bit of that knowledge. And it's interesting because you had it, but there's a piece of you who were like, I did it too much, I don't need it right now, and now it's like, okay, fine, I'm gonna go to the gym again.
Yeah, and I hugely regret it, right? Because I had to rebuild in a way that I could have maintained. But yeah, I mean, to your point, I think a lot of where we end up and what we focus on in our health and nutrition is trend based and is influencer based. And that's really what we're trying to overcome, is getting the very best expertise and knowledge into the hands of everybody. But more than that, we're helping people navigate their own health journey. And so from that, where I meant your body shifts, it changes. In November, do I want to be doing my highest intensity workouts in Canada in the dark? No, I'm tired. Maybe I should do more yoga, you know?
Yeah,
And so
exactly.
these are the things that if you have a team with you, you can adapt and you can change to your body and your needs, because they're always changing and we just don't have the knowledge and ability to do that on our own today. So that's really, yeah, to your point, one of the big goals. How do we get that knowledge into people's hands? But then how do we make it easy? How do we help direct them to, managing these energetic cycles, managing, these hormone cycles, all of these pieces, they go hand in hand.
You mentioned that meditation was really important for you as part of the mental health, but also of organization of thoughts. I think you need it for high performance sport visualization, but I also think it becomes with the introspection, understanding what's going on in our body, recalibrating our nervous system response. And can you touch on that? How is being a high level athlete versus how do you use it now, how it has evolved, or if it's pretty much the same recipe and how you're focusing on?
Yeah, I mean, let's be clear. Everything I learned as an Olympic athlete, I'm still using, but I'm not using to optimize 30 seconds of mogul skiing. I'm
Right.
using it to optimize my energy, my focus, my attention, and my joy and love of dropping into ski chutes and surfing waves bigger than I have the ability to do. So those are my goals, and that's what I'm optimizing my knowledge for. In terms of meditation, so meditation in and of itself hasn't really changed. I'm very lucky. My dad was very much into kind of the art of sport and mind, and so he taught me how to meditate when I was 9 years old, and he taught me how to visualize around that same time, and so that was a huge gift in my life. But the whole point of meditation is to let go and observe to reduce the pressure, and so yeah, I mean, I use it just as that, as a practice. Am I perfect? Do I do it as much as I want? No. Do I do it as much as I can? Yes. But the point is that it quiets my mind. It makes me more effective in my business, and I generally enjoy it. Meditation has always been about understanding my mind, my thoughts, my patterns, finding and trying to create new patterns within that. I don't think that changed because I'm not an elite athlete anymore. I still use visualization. I use visualization before I enter a big meeting, before I enter a big stage. What is the energy I want to project? Energy was a huge practice for me, standing at the top of the hill with 100 million people watching and trying to achieve a dream that I spent almost 20 years training for, well, what is the energy I want to feel today? Do I want to feel that pressure, or do I want to apply that pressure? Do I want to feel the joy? Do I want to feel this as an opportunity? Those are still tools I use in every room I enter. And so I think this comes back to one of my earlier points, in the context of our business. It doesn't really matter what your goals are. All of these things are relevant in our lives and have a place in our lives based off of what those objectives are. And most of my Olympic training has been transferable to being a busy mom, being a tired executive at times. It's way harder to be a startup founder and mom and partner and, recreational athlete than it was to do one job hyper focused. It really is. It is more demanding. Naps are not a part of my schedule for the most part. Whereas an Olympic athlete, they were a critical part of recovery. I think sometimes we have this vision of Olympic athletes and what it means to be excellent in one thing, but we're all striving to be excellent in our own lives. All of these health and performance techniques and knowledge are relevant to all of us.
Jen, thank you so much for this and for reminding us that real strength isn't just about what we achieve, but about how we listen, lead, and stay connected to ourselves through every seasons of life. It was truly a pleasure to speak to you today. Thank you so much.
Thanks for creating this space. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, and good luck with the Olympics to everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. Here we go. Countdown's
Yay!
on.
Go Canada!
I hope you enjoyed this episode and that it inspired you on your motherhood and womanhood journey. Make sure to check out the show notes to learn more about today's guest. Don't forget to subscribe and please share in the comment what resonated with you and pass this episode to a friend or family so we can grow our village together. Until next time, stay curious, stay connected, and keep rewiring yourself into the woman you know you're meant to become.